Hello there, and welcome. Today, I want to have a heartfelt conversation with you about something that touches all of our lives as we grow older. Relationships. Whether it's with your adult children, your grandchildren, or even friends, maintaining respect, understanding, and connection can sometimes feel like a challenge. I want you to know, you are not alone. Many people, as they step into their golden years, find themselves wondering, why does it feel like I'm being ignored? Why don't they listen to me the way they used to? How do I handle these situations without letting frustration or sadness take over? If any of this resonates with you, take a deep breath and stay with me, because today, we're going to talk about ways to foster better communication and respect in your relationships. Together, we'll explore 6 essential steps that can truly transform how you connect with the people you care about, especially when things get tough. These steps are not just about avoiding arguments or disagreements. They're about building bridges of trust and understanding that will stand the test of time. If you haven't already, consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell so you'll be the first to know when a new video drops. Your support truly makes a difference. If you found value in this video, a like and share would mean a lot in helping me reach more people with these important lessons. And I'd love to hear from you. If you're enjoying this topic, leave a 1 in the comments or a 0 if you'd like to see something different. Your feedback helps me improve and bring you the content you want. Let's make one thing clear before we dive in. Relationships are never perfect, no matter what stage of life we're in. We all have moments where emotions run high, where words come out the wrong way, or where misunderstandings creep in. But what matters is how we respond, how we learn, and how we grow through these moments. The good news is, you have the power to shape your relationships into ones filled with mutual respect, love, and meaningful connection. It's never too late to try. Throughout this video, I'll be sharing simple, actionable strategies you can start using right away. These aren't just theories. They're steps that have worked for countless people in situations just like yours. And as we move forward, remember this. Your voice, your feelings, and your perspective matter deeply. You deserve to be heard, and you deserve relationships that bring joy and fulfillment into your life. So, are you ready to take that first step towards stronger, healthier connections with the people you care about? Let's begin this journey together. Step 1. Keep your emotions in check. I know it's easier said than done, especially when you feel ignored, dismissed, or even disrespected by people you care about. But let me tell you, this step is the foundation for building healthier, more respectful relationships. When emotions run high, it's natural to feel hurt, frustrated, or even angry. These feelings are valid, and they matter. But the way we respond to them can either help us strengthen a relationship or create a bigger gap. Picture this. You've expressed something important to your adult child, maybe a concern about how they're raising their kids or how infrequently they visit, and their response feels cold or dismissive. It's easy to let frustration take over in that moment, but reacting out of anger or hurt can make the situation worse. Here's the good news. You can train yourself to handle these moments differently. It starts with pausing. Before saying anything, take a deep breath. Literally, stop for a moment and let yourself breathe. Feel the air going into your lungs and slowly releasing. That pause, even if it's just for a few seconds, gives you a chance to regain control over your emotions and think clearly about how you want to respond. Now, I'm not suggesting that you bury your feelings or pretend they don't exist. That's not healthy either. What I'm saying is this. Acknowledge how you're feeling, but don't let those feelings control your actions. When you respond calmly, you're not only preserving your dignity, you're also sending a powerful message to the person you're speaking with. You're showing them that you're steady, thoughtful, and in control of the conversation. And here's something I want you to remember. Calmness is contagious. When you remain composed, it can actually help the other person calm down too. Think about it. How many times has an argument escalated because both sides were reacting emotionally? By staying grounded, you're breaking that cycle and creating space for a more respectful dialogue. Now let's talk about what this looks like in real life. Say your grandchild, who you adore, rolls their eyes or speaks to you in a tone that feels disrespectful. Your first instinct might be to snap back with something like, "Don't you dare speak to me like that." But instead, try this. Pause. Take that deep breath and say, "I'm feeling hurt by the way you just spoke to me. I want to understand why you're upset." This approach does 2 things. First, it expresses your feelings in a calm, clear way, which helps the other person understand the impact of their actions. Second, it invites them to explain their perspective, which can lead to a deeper conversation instead of a heated exchange. You're showing them that you're willing to listen, and that opens the door for them to do the same. Now, you might be wondering, what if I try to stay calm, but they keep being rude or dismissive? That's a valid concern. Here's the thing. Staying calm doesn't guarantee that the other person will immediately change their behavior, but it does give you the power to maintain your own peace of mind. And over time, your consistent calmness can influence how others respond to you. Let's take a moment to reflect. Have you ever been in a situation where you reacted emotionally and later wished you had handled it differently? If that's ever happened to you, I'd love for you to share your story in the comments. How did it make you feel, and what would you do differently now? Your experiences can be so valuable to others who are navigating similar challenges. Lastly, I want to emphasize this. Staying calm doesn't mean you're letting things slide or avoiding the issue. On the contrary, it's about addressing the situation with clarity and purpose. It's about choosing a response that aligns with your values and strengthens the relationship, rather than letting frustration drive a wedge between you and the people you care about. So, the next time you find yourself in a challenging conversation, remember to pause, breathe, and ground yourself. When you approach these moments with calmness and composure, you're not just protecting your peace. You're also creating an opportunity for deeper understanding and respect. And that, my friend, is a powerful step forward. What do you think about this first step? Have you ever tried pausing before responding? And if so, how did it change the outcome? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your insights. Now, when you're ready, let's move on to the next step. Showing understanding without losing your voice. Step 2. Show understanding without losing your voice. Now that we've talked about staying calm, let's move to the next important step, showing understanding. And let me tell you, this one is a game changer. Showing understanding doesn't mean you have to agree with everything the other person says or does. It means you're willing to look beyond their behavior and understand what might be driving it. Think about this for a moment. How many times have you had a conversation with someone, and they responded in a way that left you thinking, why are they acting like this? Maybe your adult child seemed irritated when you asked them about their day, or a friend brushed off your invitation to meet. It's easy to feel hurt or disrespected, but often, there's something deeper going on. Here's an example. Your son or daughter, who you've always been close to, suddenly seems distant. When you call them, they rush through the conversation, or they don't call back at all. It's natural to feel hurt or even angry in that situation. But before jumping to conclusions, take a step back and ask yourself, what might they be going through right now? Life is busy, and people, especially younger generations, are juggling more than we sometimes realize. They could be stressed about work, struggling with their own parenting challenges, or simply overwhelmed by the pace of modern life. By approaching the situation with curiosity instead of judgment, you create an opportunity for understanding rather than conflict. Here's how you can practice this. Instead of saying, why don't you ever call me back? Try something like, I've noticed you've been busy lately. Is everything okay? This shift in tone and language makes a world of difference. You're expressing concern instead of criticism, and that opens the door for them to share what's really going on. Now, I know what you might be thinking, but what if they still don't open up? What if they keep brushing me off? That's where patience comes in. Understanding takes time. Sometimes, people need to know that you're genuinely there for them, without pressure or judgment, before they feel safe enough to let their guard down. This step is also about maintaining your own voice. Showing understanding doesn't mean you should ignore your feelings or let others walk all over you. It's a balance. For instance, if someone's behavior is consistently disrespectful, it's okay to say, I'm here to support you, but I also need to feel respected in our conversations. You're setting a boundary while still expressing care and understanding. Let's dive a little deeper into this idea of balance. Imagine your grandchild is going through a rebellious phase and starts speaking to you in a tone that feels dismissive. Instead of reacting with, don't talk to me like that, you might say, it sounds like you're upset. I want to understand what's going on, but we need to talk to each other respectfully. This approach lets them know you're listening, while also making it clear that disrespect is not acceptable. Another powerful tool in showing understanding is empathy. Put yourself in their shoes, even if just for a moment. If you've ever felt overwhelmed, stressed, or misunderstood, you know how much it means when someone takes the time to really listen to you. By offering that same gift to others, you create a space where mutual respect can grow. Now, here's something I'd love for you to think about. When was the last time someone showed understanding toward you? How did it make you feel? Did it make you more open to hearing their perspective? If you feel comfortable sharing, drop your story in the comments below. Your experience might just inspire someone else to approach their relationships with more empathy. One more thing to keep in mind. Understanding doesn't mean excusing bad behavior. It means recognizing that there's often a reason behind it and addressing that root cause instead of just reacting to the surface issue. For example, if a loved one is consistently short-tempered, it might not be about you at all. They could be dealing with their own challenges, like financial stress or health concerns. By acknowledging their struggles, you're not condoning the behavior, but you are showing them that you care. And here's the beauty of this step. When you take the time to understand someone else's perspective, it often encourages them to do the same for you. They start to see you not just as a parent, grandparent, or friend, but as a person with your own feelings, challenges, and needs. This mutual understanding can transform the dynamic of your relationship. So, as you practice this step, remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about making an effort to listen, to empathize, and to respond thoughtfully, even when it's hard. Over time, this approach can strengthen your relationships and create a deeper sense of connection. What do you think about this idea of showing understanding without losing your voice? Have you ever tried this approach? And if so, what happened? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. When you're ready, let's move on to the next step. Setting clear boundaries calmly. Step 3. Set clear boundaries calmly. Let's talk about boundaries. Those invisible lines that help define what's acceptable and what's not in our relationships. For many of us, especially as we get older, setting boundaries with loved ones can feel uncomfortable. You might worry about being seen as too demanding, or even fear pushing people away. But here's the truth. Boundaries are not about controlling others. They're about protecting your peace and ensuring mutual respect in your relationships. Think of boundaries as a way to communicate your needs clearly. They're not about saying, do this or else, but rather, this is what I need to feel respected and valued. When done calmly and thoughtfully, boundaries can actually bring people closer because they create clarity and understanding. Now, let's take a real-life example. Imagine your adult child frequently shows up late for family dinners, leaving you feeling unappreciated for the effort you've put into preparing the meal. It's tempting to let resentment build up, or to make a snide comment like, "Nice of you to finally join us," but instead, try calmly setting a boundary. You might say, "I really value our time together, and it's important to me that we start dinner on time. Could we work on being punctual for family meals?" Notice how this approach is both clear and respectful. You're expressing your feelings and setting an expectation without attacking or blaming. This way, the conversation stays constructive and you're more likely to see a positive response. Now, here's a key point about boundaries. They only work if they're consistent. If you set a boundary but don't follow through on it, it sends mixed messages. For instance, if you tell your grandchildren they need to clean up their mess before playing a new game, but then let it slide, they'll learn that your boundaries aren't firm. This doesn't mean you need to be rigid or unkind. Consistency can and should be done with love. Let's talk about the emotional side of setting boundaries. It can feel uncomfortable, especially if you're not used to asserting yourself. You might feel guilty or worry about how the other person will react. But here's the thing. Setting boundaries is an act of self-respect, and it teaches others how to treat you. It's not about being harsh. It's about being clear and kind, both to yourself and to the people around you. One of the most effective ways to set boundaries is to use I statements rather than you statements. For example, instead of saying, "You never listen to me," say, "I feel unheard when our conversations are interrupted." Instead of saying, "You're always asking for too much," say, "I need to take some time for myself before I can help with that." This approach shifts the focus from blame to communication, making it easier for the other person to understand where you're coming from. Now, let's address a common fear. What if the other person doesn't respect your boundaries? This can happen and it's important to stay calm and stand firm. For example, if you've asked a family member to call before dropping by unannounced, and they continue to show up unexpectedly, you might need to remind them. I've mentioned how much I appreciate a heads up before visits. It's important to me that we stick to that. If the behavior persists, it's okay to enforce consequences, like not answering the door when they arrive unannounced. This isn't about being punitive. It's about reinforcing your boundaries in a way that's respectful but firm. Now, let me ask you, have you ever struggled to set a boundary with someone? Maybe you felt too nervous or worried about how they'd react. If you're willing to share, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. What happened? And what do you wish you could have done differently? Your story might inspire someone else who's navigating a similar situation. Here's another thing to keep in mind. Boundaries are not just about saying no to others. They're also about saying yes to yourself. When you set clear limits, you're prioritizing your own well-being and creating space for the things that truly matter to you. It's about recognizing that your time, energy, and peace are valuable, and you have the right to protect them. Finally, remember that setting boundaries is not a one-time event. It's an ongoing process. Relationships evolve, and so do our needs. Be prepared to revisit and adjust your boundaries as needed, and communicate them openly. For example, if you've always hosted every holiday dinner but now find it exhausting, it's okay to say, "I've loved hosting in the past, but I'd like to share the responsibility this year. Can we plan it together?" Setting boundaries takes courage, especially if it's something you're not used to doing. But over time, it becomes easier, and the benefits are well worth it. You'll feel more respected, more at peace, and more connected to the people in your life. So, what do you think about this idea of calmly setting boundaries? Have you ever set a boundary that made a positive difference in your relationships? Share your experience in the comments. I'd love to learn from you. When you're ready, let's move on to the next step, leading by example. Step 4. Lead by example. Let's move on to something truly powerful, setting the example you want to see in your relationships. We often hear phrases like respect is earned, and that's absolutely true. But respect is also learned, and the best way to teach it is to model it in your own behavior. The truth is, people, especially those closest to us, learn far more from what we do than what we say. Think about it. Have you ever noticed how your tone, actions, or even mood can influence the atmosphere around you? When you're calm and kind, others tend to mirror that energy. On the other hand, when frustration or impatience creeps in, it can quickly spread. This is why leading by example is so important. It creates the tone for your relationships. Now, let's talk about what this looks like in real life. If you want your adult children or grandchildren to show more patience, start by showing patience yourself. For instance, if a family member is running late or forgets something, instead of reacting with frustration, try saying, "I know things get busy sometimes. Let's move forward from here." That small act of grace sets a powerful example of how to handle setbacks with understanding. Or maybe you want your loved ones to listen more attentively when you speak. Ask yourself, am I truly listening to them when they're talking? It's easy to slip into habits of interrupting or jumping in with advice before someone finishes their thought. Instead, make an effort to listen fully, without judgment or distraction. This not only strengthens your connection, but also encourages them to extend the same courtesy to you. Leading by example also applies to how we handle disagreements. Picture this. You're in a conversation with your grandchild, and they express an opinion you strongly disagree with. It could be about politics, a career choice, or even something as simple as their choice of hobbies. Instead of immediately correcting them or dismissing their view, try responding with curiosity. "That's interesting. Tell me more about why you feel that way." This approach shows respect for their perspective, even if you don't share it. Now, I know this isn't always easy. There are moments when emotions get the better of us, and that's okay. It's part of being human. What matters is how we handle those moments afterward. If you realize you've reacted poorly, don't hesitate to acknowledge it. For example, you might say, "I let my frustration get the better of me earlier, and I'm sorry. I want us to have a better conversation about this." Admitting your mistakes doesn't weaken your position. It strengthens it by showing humility and a willingness to grow. Let me ask you this. Have you ever had someone in your life who set a great example for you? Maybe it was a parent, a teacher, or a close friend. What did they do that left such a lasting impression on you? Share your story in the comments below. I'd love to hear about the people who inspired you and why. Another powerful way to lead by example is through kindness and gratitude. It's easy to take small acts of care for granted, especially in close relationships. But a simple thank you or I appreciate you can go a long way in making others feel valued. For instance, if your grandchild helps you with a chore or your friend calls to check in, take a moment to express your gratitude. When you model appreciation, you teach others to practice it as well. And let's not forget the role of self-care. Taking care of yourself, physically, emotionally, and mentally, sends a clear message to your loved ones. I value myself, and I hope you value yourself too. Whether it's staying active, pursuing hobbies, or simply taking time to rest, prioritizing your well-being sets an important example for those around you. One thing I want to stress here is that leading by example doesn't mean you have to be perfect. None of us are. What matters is consistency and effort. People notice when you're trying, even if you stumble along the way. Your willingness to grow, adapt, and approach relationships with integrity will leave a lasting impression on those around you. Now, let's reflect. What kind of example are you setting in your relationships right now? Are there areas where you'd like to improve or habits you'd like to change? Take a moment to think about it, and if you feel comfortable, share your thoughts in the comments. Sometimes, simply acknowledging where we want to grow can be the first step toward making positive changes. To sum up, leading by example is about showing others, through your actions, how you want to be treated and how you hope they treat others. It's about living the values of respect, patience, and kindness, even when it's difficult. Over time, these behaviors create a ripple effect, influencing not just your immediate relationships, but also how those people interact with others in their lives. So, as you move forward, remember this. You have the power to shape your relationships by the way you show up in them. The more you embody the qualities you want to see, the more likely those qualities are to flourish in the people around you. And that, my friend, is one of the greatest legacies you can leave. When you're ready, let's move on to the next step, creating moments of connection outside of conflict. This one is a personal favorite of mine, and I can't wait to share it with you. Step 5. Create moments of connection outside of conflict. Let's talk about something truly meaningful, connection. Relationships, at their core, thrive on connection, yet so often, we find ourselves focusing only on what's wrong. Whether it's a disagreement with a loved one or a misunderstanding, the tension can sometimes overshadow the love and bond you share. That's why creating moments of connection outside of conflict is so important. It's the glue that holds relationships together. Here's the thing. It's easy to focus on fixing problems, but it's just as important to nurture the positive moments in your relationships. Think about it. When was the last time you shared a laugh, told a story, or simply sat together in comfortable silence with someone you care about? These moments may seem small, but they're the foundation of mutual respect and love. Creating moments of connection doesn't have to be complicated. In fact, it's often the simplest things that make the biggest impact. For example, call your adult child not to ask about responsibilities or plans, but simply to say, I was thinking about you today and wanted to hear your voice. Invite your grandchild to teach you something new, like how to use a feature on your phone or a popular game they love. This shows them you value their knowledge and creates a shared experience. Suggest a walk, a meal, or even a cup of tea with a close friend, where the focus is simply on enjoying each other's company. These moments of connection remind your loved ones that your relationship is about more than just expectations or obligations. It's about the joy of being together. And here's the best part. They don't just strengthen your bond in the present. They also create a reservoir of goodwill that can make future conflicts easier to navigate. When your relationships are built on a foundation of positive experiences, it's easier to weather the storms that inevitably come. Now, you might be thinking, what if my loved ones don't seem interested in connecting? That's a fair concern, and it can be discouraging at times. But here's what I want you to remember. Connection starts with you. By taking the initiative, you're showing them how much they mean to you, even if they don't immediately respond the way you hope. Sometimes, it takes time for others to realize the value of these shared moments. Let's consider an example. Imagine your grandchild is always glued to their phone, even during family visits. Instead of getting frustrated, try engaging with them on their level. Ask them about the game they're playing or the videos they're watching. Show genuine curiosity about their world. This not only opens the door for conversation, but also shows them that you're interested in their life, not just in their behavior. Here's another idea. Use traditions to create connection. Maybe it's a weekly phone call, a monthly lunch outing, or even something as simple as baking cookies together every holiday season. Traditions give you something to look forward to and create lasting memories. These rituals don't have to be grand or elaborate. They just need to be meaningful. And let's not forget the power of listening. Truly listening to someone is one of the greatest gifts you can give. When a loved one shares their thoughts, put aside distractions and focus entirely on what they're saying. Respond with empathy and encouragement rather than advice or criticism. This simple act of presence can deepen your bond in ways that words alone cannot. Now, let me ask you, what's one of your favorite ways to connect with the people you care about? Is it a particular activity, tradition, or conversation style? I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Your ideas might inspire others to try something new in their relationships. One thing I've learned is that these moments of connection aren't just about the other person. They're also deeply fulfilling for you. They remind you of the joy, love, and meaning that relationships bring to your life. And let's face it, as we get older, it's these moments that truly matter. They're what we carry with us, long after the details of disagreements fade away. It's also worth noting that creating moments of connection doesn't always require physical presence. If distance separates you from loved ones, take advantage of technology. A video call, a thoughtful text, or even a handwritten letter can bridge the gap and show that you're thinking of them. It's not about how often you connect, but the quality of those connections. And here's something important. Don't wait for the right time to reach out. Life gets busy, and days can slip by before we realize it. Make the effort now, even if it's just a quick message or a short visit. These small gestures add up, creating a pattern of love and care that strengthens your relationships over time. Finally, remember that connection is a two-way street. By showing interest in your loved ones' lives, you're teaching them to do the same for you. When they see how much you value these moments, they're more likely to reciprocate and make an effort to connect with you as well. To sum up, creating moments of connection outside of conflict is about prioritizing the relationships that matter most. It's about finding joy in the simple act of being together and building a foundation of trust and respect that can carry you through any challenge. So, take the time to reach out, listen, and share meaningful experiences. You'll be amazed at how much it strengthens your bonds. What do you think about this step? Have you had a moment of connection recently that brought you joy or strengthened a relationship? Share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear about the special ways you connect with the people you care about. When you're ready, let's move on to the final step, giving your loved ones space to reflect. Step 6. Give them space to reflect. As we come to the final step, I want to talk about something that's often overlooked but incredibly powerful, giving space. Sometimes, the most meaningful thing you can do in a relationship is to step back and allow the other person the time they need to reflect. This step isn't about walking away or giving up. It's about creating the opportunity for growth, understanding, and healing. Let's start with this. When we have a tough conversation or set a boundary, it's natural to want an immediate response. You might think, I explained myself clearly. Why don't they just see my point? But relationships, especially those involving strong emotions or long-standing patterns, don't change overnight. People often need time to process what's been said, reflect on their own behavior, and consider how they want to move forward. For example, imagine you've told your adult child that you feel hurt when they cancel plans at the last minute. You've expressed this calmly and respectfully, but instead of apologizing, they seem defensive. In moments like this, it's tempting to push for resolution. Don't you see how this affects me? Why can't you just admit you're wrong? But pushing too hard can backfire, leading to more resistance and less understanding. Instead, try stepping back. After expressing your feelings, give them the space to process what you've said. This doesn't mean you're letting the issue go. It means you're trusting them to take the time they need to reflect and come back to the conversation when they're ready. By allowing space, you're showing respect for their process and giving the relationship room to breathe. Now, let me make something clear. Giving space doesn't mean tolerating ongoing disrespect or ignoring serious issues. It's about recognizing when a conversation has reached its natural limit and knowing when to pause. Sometimes, silence can be more powerful than words, especially when it gives the other person a chance to reflect on their actions and feelings without the pressure of immediate resolution. Let me ask you this. Have you ever been in a situation where someone gave you space to think, and it helped you see things more clearly? Maybe it was after an argument, or perhaps they gave you time to process a difficult decision. How did that feel, and what did it teach you? If you're comfortable, share your experience in the comments. I'm sure others can learn from your insights. One of the greatest benefits of giving space is that it encourages self-awareness. When people aren't immediately confronted or cornered, they're more likely to reflect on their behavior and how it impacts others. For instance, if your grandchild speaks to you in a disrespectful tone, calmly expressing your feelings and then stepping back might give them the time they need to realize, I shouldn't have spoken to grandma that way. Here's a helpful mindset to adopt. Trust the process. Trust that your loved ones are capable of growth and reflection, even if it doesn't happen as quickly as you'd like. This trust not only gives them the freedom to change, but also strengthens your relationship by showing them that you believe in their ability to improve. Let's talk about another reason why giving space is so important. It allows emotions to settle. When tensions are high, it's hard for anyone to think clearly or respond constructively. Taking a step back gives both you and the other person a chance to cool down, gain perspective, and approach the situation with a calmer mindset. For example, let's say you've had a disagreement with a close friend about something minor, like a miscommunication about plans. Instead of insisting on resolving it right away, you might say, let's take a little time to think this through and talk again later. This approach shows maturity and patience, and it often leads to a more thoughtful and productive resolution. Now, here's an important reminder. While giving space is valuable, it doesn't mean avoiding the issue altogether. Once some time has passed, it's important to revisit the conversation if it's something that needs to be addressed. When you do, you'll often find that the tone is more positive and that both parties are better prepared to listen and understand each other. I also want to mention that giving space doesn't just benefit the other person. It's good for you too. It gives you time to reflect on your own feelings, clarify your thoughts, and decide how you want to move forward. Maybe you realize that what upset you wasn't as important as it seemed in the heat of the moment. Or perhaps you gain a better understanding of what you need to say when the conversation resumes. Finally, let's touch on the long-term impact of this step. When you consistently give space for reflection, you're teaching your loved ones an invaluable skill: the ability to pause, think, and grow from difficult moments. This is a gift that will not only strengthen your relationship, but also help them in all areas of their lives. So, as we wrap up this step, let me ask you, is there someone in your life who might benefit from a little space to reflect? How might stepping back change the dynamic of your relationship? If you're comfortable sharing, drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear how you plan to apply this in your own life. And that's it. Those are the 6 steps to fostering respect, understanding, and connection in your relationships. Let's take a moment to reflect on everything we've covered. Remember, these steps aren't about perfection. They're about progress. Every small effort you make to stay calm, show understanding, set boundaries, lead by example, create connection, and give space is a step toward stronger, more fulfilling relationships. If you've made it this far, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining me on this journey. Which step resonated with you the most? What's one thing you're going to start practicing right away? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who might benefit from these steps, and subscribe to stay connected for more content like this. Together, we can navigate the challenges of relationships with grace, patience, and love. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.